Hey there, my name is Marley and welcome to my channel. Today we are starting a new reading vlog where I'm going to be reading romance books. So yes, the theme of this new weekly reading vlog is reading romance books, but specifically it is reading my 5-star prediction romance books. I think I've only made one other video like this so far where I read 5-star predictions, but it's something I want to keep doing moving forward because I think it's really fun to see if I really know myself and what I would give 5 stars. As you may or may not know, I don't often give romance books 5 stars, but these are the ones that I think I would have the most potential to out of any that I have seen come out recently. So first up, I want to read Twice Shy by Sarah Hogle, and the reason that I think this one could be 5 stars is because I read a previous romance from her called We Deserve Each Other, and it was one of my favorite romances I've ever read. I gave it 4.5 stars. I thought it was so funny, and I just really liked her writing. So that's why I think this other book by her could be a 5-star. Next up is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. The reason I think this could be a 5-star is mostly because of all the great reviews and feedback I've seen about this book. It seems to be so beloved by so many people that I do trust on BookTube. It also is less of a rom-com vibe and more of like a deeper, more serious romance from what I understand, and you can kind of get that vibe from the cover. So I tend to enjoy those type of romances more, like in Emily Henry, where it's not necessarily all just silly, goofy, romantic smut stuff going on, but it's actually like deeper themes and more like trauma and drama. So I have high hopes for this one too. And the third one is going to be Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. And the reason I think this could be 5 stars is because I have really loved her other books that I've read, such as The Love Hypothesis, which I gave 4.5. So I clearly really enjoy her writing and her stories. But what I think could push this one over the edge is that the main character has type 1 diabetes, and that is something I really look for in books, and I think that will give me that extra personal connection to this book as I also have type 1 diabetes, and I've heard it's actually really good representation. So that is why I have really high expectations for that book as well. So now that you know the 3 books, let's get into the vlog and see what I think about them, find out more about the plot, and I'm going to be also doing a lot with TIFF while I'm filming this, the Toronto International Film Festival, so maybe I can throw in some movie reviews throughout as well. Is this lighting okay? Or is it terrible? I just got back from my second TIFF shift and I have been reading Love Theoretically. Had to get into this one first because I was given a skip the line copy at the library, so I only have it for 7 days, but I was happy to jump into this one. So first of all, let's talk more about the plot. So in this one, we're following Dr. Elsie, I forget her last name, and she is a theorist. So she works in academia right now. She's basically overworked, teaching a ton of classes, not getting paid enough, but she's a theorist, really into that. Pete, hey. She is also diabetic, which we'll come back to that, but that's another, expense that she has that she's really struggling to afford because she doesn't have health care, so buying insulin out of pocket is really expensive, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and also to make extra money, she works for this app called Faux, I think it is, where it's like a fake dating app. So it's kind of like escorting, but there's no dirty stuff that happens. She just acts as people's fake girlfriend or fake date for events or whatever if they want to impress their families. And she has this one client, Greg, who she's actually befriended. She actually has quite a kinship with. So she's gone to a few of his family events, which we see. And he has a brother who is very kind of rude to her, kind of abrupt, doesn't seem to like her, and vice versa. That means she doesn't really like him. So anyway, she's up for this new job that's like more of an ideal position for her at MIT. And when she's going through the interview process, she finds out that that guy's brother that I was talking about is like one of the people that she is going to be working with. There's this confusion because he thinks she's just his brother's girlfriend, a librarian, because she, lies about her life and like what she really does for a living when she's on these dates. So it's like a very confusing situation. He has more kind of animosity towards her because he thinks she's like lying to his brother and stuff like that. It's this whole complex thing. There's also this added layer that he is a experimentalist, and apparently there's like beef in the science community between theorists and experimentalists, and he's really involved in this beef, and so that adds more to like the hatred. So it's very much like enemies to lovers, but it's also that very clear thing that happens in some enemies to lovers where you can tell that the guy does not actually hate her, but the girl just has it in her head that like he hates her, and so she's hating him back. Very hating game, but a very fun trope. We do love to see him. And this guy's name is Jack, by the way. So Elsie and Jack, I do quite like their dynamic. I find that Jack, I do like him as a hero in this romance. I feel like he's slightly different from Ali Hazelwood's other male love interest. Like, he's a bit more of an asshole than the other ones. So if you're into that, I think you'll like this. It's pretty fun. He's still just as big because of the whole thing that Ali Hazelwood writes small girls and big men. But it was funny because she had this line where she described Elsie as medium everything. And I feel like it was her little way of being like, look, I'm not writing a tiny heroine anymore. I'm writing a medium-sized one. So that was funny. So yeah, as always, I am enjoying the way Ali Hazelwood writes her romances and all of the comedy she puts in there. It's very funny. I like a lot of the references, like Elsie loves Twilight, so that really fits for like me and like just my generation and everything. Set this higher. But here's where I could really rant about this. And I know I've already been talking for 4 minutes and I have not even gotten into this, but one of the reasons I thought this could push me over the edge with my rating and make it higher is that it had diabetic rep. Unfortunately, I feel like I might want to rate it lower because of that. I think it's pretty clear. I'm pretty sure, I know, I can tell that Ali Hazelwood herself does not have type 1 diabetes. I still want to say, like, I appreciate that she is attempting to like put this representation in. I'm sure she did some research. I have a feeling she does not know anyone personally that has it. But there are a couple things as I've been going through. Oh, I don't know if I said, I'm halfway through. I don't know if I said. There's just been things and I was like, that doesn't really match my experience. That doesn't really. And I was trying to be easy about it because I've had diabetes for 2 years. That's not a long amount of time compared to most people. So, and I'm like, maybe, people have different experiences and it's always changing. So I was trying not to judge it too hard, but there just have been certain things that I'm like, no, I can just tell it's not authentic. And it's only because I have type 1 diabetes that I'm noticing these things. Obviously, I think if you're friends or family member of diabetics, you would probably also pick up on it not really being super authentic. But it's just kind of bugging me just because I had such high hopes about it, that because I have it, it's just like so obvious to me when it's not really good. Like, I don't even want to make it sound like it's terrible, but there just are things that are disappointing me with it. So, a little bit of a backfiring situation. I thought this would make me like it more, but it's making me like it less. Like, just as an example, she calls when she checks her blood sugars, like checking her glycemic levels. And that's just a small thing where it's like, as far as I know, I don't really think type 1 diabetics, we'll call it that. We just say our blood sugars. Another thing that really got me, so there's some moments of him like helping her with it, right? Like when she's having some symptoms with high and low blood sugars, he's been there to help her. And he kind of pointed out to her that she needs to take better care of herself and stuff like that because he keeps seeing her have these diabetic incidents. And she said a comment about like, well, the only 2 diabetic incidents I've had in the last year have been with you. And that is just insane to me because as a type 1 diabetic, you're having these instances probably two a day, not 2 a year. And I mean like a high and low blood sugar. Like, you're having that constantly throughout the day, throughout the week, much less the year. Like, she had 1 high and 1 low in the whole year. That's amazing. That's freaking amazing. That's impossible. So it's just things like that that I'm like, I cannot look past this. And there will be the odd thing where, okay, they mentioned carb counting once. They mentioned her pod malfunctioning, which can be annoying. But it's like, we have highs and lows, not just because of our pod malfunctioning. There's so many other things that affect it that are not being explored. So it's just, and I don't need the plot to be totally based on it, but I just think as someone who lives with type 1 diabetes 24/7, like it is a 24/7 thing, and so it just doesn't make sense. And then when she has a low blood sugar around him and he like gets her some like soda, some sugar for her to drink, but in my head I'm like, any type 1 diabetic would literally be carrying candy on them. Like I know no one's perfect. Like I have forgotten to bring candy with me before when I'm out, but we're gonna have it in our purse. Like we're gonna have it ready to go. We're gonna have those extra snacks. So yeah, anyways, I'm not gonna talk too much more, but that's my opinion. That's my thoughts. I feel like this is falling down again. So we'll see what the second half brings. They are getting closer, Elsie and Jack. Still pretty slow burn, which is always a good thing for me. And there's been a couple diabetic related moments that I do think are cute. I did think it was cute when he like made sure to keep the package of something so she could carb count. That literally would be a weight to my heart. Like when my boyfriend actually is like, has carb counted something for me in advance, or like remembers to keep the package out, like I really appreciate that. So that was the other thing. I said I was gonna stop talking, but there's stuff with her personality. So basically her only personality trait is that she is a people pleaser and will just literally change her personality for whoever she's with. There's this big whole thing, and a lot of that comes from her family life, and all the attention seems to be on her brothers and not on her. And I, again, just as a diabetic, she was diagnosed when she was 10 years old, she said in this book. And that would have, I think, taken a lot of the parents' attention for their child to have been diagnosed with this chronic illness. So I just don't know if it's totally accurate that it's like she grew up without having like her parents' attention. It still does kind of make sense that she wants to be the easy child. She wants to make people feel better, and she doesn't want people to like, know about her disease because of that and stuff. But anyways, I should go to bed because I'm going back to TIFF tomorrow. Say goodnight, Peach.
Fly so high, I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right.
Just a girl sitting here reading smut.
Can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
All right, hi guys, just checking in. I just had a full TIFF day of actually seeing movies, doing stuff on Festival Street. I think I'll insert a clip of having seen Elliot Page on the street, so that was kind of fun. A little star sighting. And yeah, spent the day with my mom there. We rushed one movie and didn't get in, but then we had tickets to see this Italian film called I Told You So. It was okay, but not necessarily a favorite. And then we did another rush line and we did get in to Boy Kills World, which I wanted to see because it had Bill Skarsgård in it, and I have a little crush on him. And then there was actually a bunch of other actors in the movie that I recognized as well. It was very actiony, violent, kind of graphic, so I was a little worried about it going in, especially bringing my mom, but then it actually had a really comedic tone as well. It had a good story, kind of good message, so would recommend that whenever it comes out. I have no idea when it will, but Boy Kills World was actually pretty good. So there's a movie update. All right, friends, I have finished the book. I don't know, I'm kind of feeling like it's my least favorite Ali Hazelwood book, unfortunately. I don't want to get too much into the diabetes stuff because I already went on my little rant. There's definitely more I could say. Like maybe the one other thing I'll say is like there's a point where she was going to change her insulin pump, and then he was like, oh, I want to watch, like I want to learn. And I was like, oh, that's very cute, I like that. And then they get distracted and like hook up, and then she never ends up changing her insulin pump, and we never ended up getting that scene of like her showing him how to do it. So like things like that just kept kind of disappointing me throughout. I still really liked the story, but I also feel like they might be my least favorite couple as well out of the 3 books that I've read from her. But I also don't know if it's because I'm having a really crazy week. I'm super busy, so like my mental state might have like affected my enjoyment of the book. I don't know. I still though want to give it 4 stars because I just feel like I do like how Ali Hazelwood writes so much that I can't imagine giving one of her books 4 stars. But just know that it would be like a lower 4-star, like a soft 4-star rating. I think most people though will enjoy it a lot more than I did because of the diabetic thing that I've been talking about. No one else is going to be as like triggered and affected by that as me. So I definitely would recommend this book, especially if you liked her previous ones. I feel like it's a little bit different from her other 2. There's definitely some differences in the love interest and the fact that it focuses, I would say, more on the science stuff than the other ones have. I still think it's a very good book. I just wish more would have went into the diabetic stuff. I wanted to mention I read another romance that had type 1 rep. I think the book was called like Under the Mistletoe or something by Chloe Leese. I'll put a picture up maybe if that's not the right title. She had type 1 rep, but she made the love interest have it instead of the main character. And I feel like that's a good strategy. If you yourself are not super familiar with the disease, then like give it to the love interest who you're not seeing from 24/7. You're not seeing their point of view. So you are only seeing like a little bit of the chronic illness. Then it's kind of like more believable. But if it's the main character that has it, it's just coming across as like not authentic. So I think Chloe Leese made a good choice in that when she made that decision. I also don't think I mentioned it earlier, but if you want a book that has really authentic type 1 rep, I would also recommend Blood Sugar by Sasha Rothschild. Her husband has type 1 in real life, and you can really tell that she has experience with it with how she writes about the illness in her book. So just want to say that. Now we will continue on to the next book. I think I'm gonna do 7 Days in June next, just to break up the 2 rom-coms, and I will continue with my busy week because I'm still doing stuff with TIFF. Guys, I gotta be honest, I gotta be real. I've been reflecting, and I also went down a rabbit hole of reading negative reviews about Love Theoretically, specifically from other type 1 diabetics, and I think I have to lower my rating to a 3. I really didn't want to do that, but I think I just need to embrace how I really feel and how upset I was about the diabetic representation. Like reading other reviews and thinking about it more, I really actually think it was a little bit disrespectful. The lack of a research it seemed that was put into it. So I just have to accept that. I have to speak my truth. So I'm gonna lower the rating to a 3, which you saw I didn't want to do, but this is my truth. So there's a little update for you.
Don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight.
Between the 2 actors and really getting that bond. I remember there was a moment where Aquafina said that this is the first time that she really felt that someone who is playing a relative, like she really felt related to her.
All right, I am home from seeing The Quiz Lady at TIFF, and honestly it was such a great movie. Highly recommend when it comes out. I think they said it was coming on Hulu and Disney Plus. I don't know when, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a comedy starring Sandra Oh and Aquafina. So right there, like, you know it's gonna be great. It's also like they play sisters, so it also has that heart to it. Basically the one sister is like super crazy, eccentric, kind of irresponsible, and then the other sister is like the opposite and doesn't really have much of a life. And her life pretty much revolves around just watching this quiz show every night with her dog. And then a video of her watching goes viral. She becomes the quiz lady. She ends up going on the show. It's this whole thing, but very good. Something else I'm enjoying is 7 Days in June. Sorry if you can hear Peach eating over there. I made it to the halfway point, got a lot of reading done today with commuting to the office, waiting in line for the movie because I had to rush it because I didn't have a ticket. I am loving it. So basically we are following these 2 writers. Our main girl, Eva, so she actually writes like romantasy, I guess you would call it, like smutty romance that has to do with like vampires and witches and stuff. Shane is our male lead, and he writes more like literary fiction, like books that get awards and stuff like that. When these two were younger, they spent 7 days together in June and had this kind of whirlwind romance and connection. And ever since, they have been writing about each other in their books. So clearly, Eva has a character that is based off Shane, and then Shane writes about characters based on her, but they have not spoken in all these years, and then this writing convention ends up bringing them back together, and so now we're seeing them in present day, you know, reconnecting. I think I said before that it's like the more serious one of the three, and it is, but it also is quite funny as well. Like, don't get it twisted, it is also very funny, and I just am really loving the characters. She's going crazy. Eva's also a single mother, so we're exploring that. She also has chronic pain. She has some sort of chronic illness. She has constant headaches and is always in pain. So it's interesting seeing that representation. I guess both books I've read in this have featured a chronic illness. One is being done better than the other. And also, interestingly enough, in both books, the main character's best friend is named Cece. Anyway, yeah, I'm loving the characters' chemistry. I'm really just, you're rooting for them so much to get together. I just think it's a really well done book and very well rounded so far. So definitely the better book, and definitely still a potential for a 5-star rating. I think I knew with the last book by the halfway point it was not gonna happen. This one, there is definitely still hope that it could be a 5-star, or at least very high up there. So yeah, that is the update for now. So I'm cooking dinner, but I just got back from seeing Daddy-O. I got in Rush, which if you guys don't know, the Rush line is like when a movie's sold out, then you can line up in the Rush line, and if there's any empty seats when the movie starts, then you can get in. Honestly, wouldn't totally recommend it. I was interested because it's starring Dakota Johnson and Sean Penn. They're like the only two in the movie. He's driving her home in a taxi cab. The whole movie just takes place in the cab with the two of them. I thought it was an interesting premise, but it was like a little bit boring. Like, it was kind of interesting because it's just like about these two strangers connecting, opening up to each other, talking about life and these different themes, but a little bit boring. I wouldn't race to see it. Hey, book update. So I just finished 7 Days in June. I quite enjoyed it, and I think my final rating would be 4 stars. So not a 5-star again, but still a pretty good book. Definitely a romance I would recommend. Definitely one I really enjoyed. I don't think I talked about in my halfway update that there are still a lot of dark themes to this book that you should probably be aware of going in. Both characters are dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of darkness. There is addiction, a lot of drug abuse, self-harm, stuff like that maybe is triggering content. So I just did want to mention that. Also, a little critique about it is that I wish we got more of those flashback scenes to when the two of them were younger and they spent that week together. That's something I think would have made this book a little better for me, is if we spent more time in the past and seeing that relationship develop, because it was like a little bit insta-love for me. So there definitely are like a few critiques, like few reasons it didn't get that full 5-star rating for me, but still overall it did enjoy it, so that is good. Now let's just go into the last book. Hopefully we save the best for last. And once again, I will be seeing another movie at TIFF tonight, hopefully, if I get into the Rush line. So we still have more movie reviews coming too. So Fingernails, very weird movie, very odd. Did not enjoy it as much as I wanted to. It was entertaining to watch in the moment, but I don't know how much I loved like what it did and how it ended. And I don't necessarily think the message was anything mind-blowing or anything. If you want to know a little teaser, it's about this world in the near future where there's this technology that can test whether you're a good match romantically, which we've seen in multiple books. There's multiple books I've read with this concept, like The One and The Soulmate Equation, but in this one you have to pull out your fingernails to test. That's why it's called Fingernails. I'll leave it at that. Not a favorite, but I'll also shout out my Letterboxd account in the description. Letterboxd is like the Goodreads of movies. If you want to follow me on there and see my ratings for all of these movies. Peach, stop! Stop! We got in.
Halloween, Friday the 13th, films like that. But for me, really, it was more about getting the heart of the movie beyond that. So Superbad was probably our main inspiration, just in terms of that to us is kind of a movie where it's like a really tender tale of friendship disguised as a sex comedy. And we wanted to do a nice kind of teen romance disguised as a slasher film.
Movie number 2. Hey everyone, so I have reached the halfway point about in Twice Shy by Sarah Hogel. So let's talk about it. Basically, we're following Mabel, and she is currently working at a hotel. She has worked there for years, but she's not really happy in her job. They don't really treat her great there. And then her one coworker actually catfishes her. So on a dating app, her coworker like created a fake profile and catfished her. So she thought she, was talking to this amazing guy and found out it was her coworker. Anyways, so she's not really feeling great in life, and then she gets notified that her great aunt, who she had kind of been estranged from, actually left her estate. So she thinks this is her life turning around. She quits her job. She's like, great, I just inherited this whole property, this whole big house. My life's gonna turn around. And basically she goes to this house and finds out that her great aunt left the house to her, but also to someone else. And it was this man named Wesley, who was like the landscaper for her, that I guess the aunt really bonded with towards the end of her life. So she left it to both of them as like a little prank. I think it was probably the aunt's plan for them to get together. But this guy Wesley is the guy that coworker was using his photos for the catfish. So she's like, oh my god, it's this guy that I literally thought I was in a relationship with, like, because she was seeing his photos and thought that's who she was dating. So she has this like instant kind of attraction to him, kind of connection to him, but it's like a grumpy sunshine romance. So he's like very grumpy. They are kind of like enemies to lovers because they're both kind of fighting over this house. They don't want to share it with each other. They both have different ideas for what they want to do with the place. Like he wants to make it an animal sanctuary, she wants to make it a hotel, but basically they're forced to kind of work together to fix up this house, clean it out, get rid of all of the aunt's stuff. So they're kind of in this little disgruntled relationship. They don't really agree on much, and as I said, he really is like grumpy, doesn't really talk to her much. But throughout it, like I'm halfway through and they are kind of starting to bond a little bit here and there, starting to open up to each other a little bit. They're talking a lot through like notes, like writing to each other, which I think is a pretty fun, cute trope in romances. I love grumpy sunshine, so I'm really liking that. The only thing is I'm like, oh, like I want more of her interactions with Wesley, which we are starting to get now, but I'm really kind of craving that, more of that interaction. Mabel is an interesting character because she really has a lot of like fantasies in her head. For example, fantasizing about dating the guy she's getting catfished by and dreaming about having her own like cafe and stuff like that. She's very imaginative, which is kind of a unique characteristic. She's kind of weird, similar to Sarah Hogel's other book where the characters were quite kind of odd and kind of very out there. That kind of vibe is in this one again, but I think it is fun. Not really sure what my rating is going to be at this point. I really need to keep reading to figure that out, but I am enjoying it. I also liked that Wesley wasn't described as necessarily like the hottest man ever, but when she was describing him, she felt attracted to him. And that's what I like, is the man doesn't need to be described as like model material, like hottest man you've ever seen. Like he can be a normal looking guy as long as the main character is attracted to them, and their specific features. So I appreciated that. Also, as I showed, we saw 2 movies at TIFF yesterday. I took my boyfriend with me. Not the best. Like we saw Hell of a Summer, which Finn Wolfhard actually made with a buddy of his. That's Mike from Stranger Things. So they wrote it, directed it, and starred in it. It was okay. It was a slasher film. So it was a slasher and comedy, and there was some romance in it. So it was pretty fun, but it was something that we've literally seen multiple times before. And then we saw Dix the Musical, and I actually quite disliked that. I don't know, it was a very weird movie. It was like these 2 guys who are long lost brothers. It's kind of like a parody of The Parent Trap, that they were like separated at birth and they're trying to like get their parents back together, but it takes a very weird turn. I don't know how to describe it. You can look it up if you want. It was not really a movie for me, but it seems to be getting good reviews, so maybe other people would like it out there, but it wasn't really for me. Now I'm going to be headed to my last movie of the festival, so I guess my next check-in will be a review for that movie and maybe my final review of Twice Shy. Hey guys, here I am to close out this vlog. I know you're thinking, finally. As for my final movie review, I'll get that out of the way first. I watched the People's Choice Award winner for TIFF, so the movie that was voted the best movie, and it was American Fiction. This was one of the better ones I saw this festival. I wasn't obsessed with it, but it was pretty interesting and actually probably something that you guys would find interesting as fellow readers. As I said, it's called American Fiction, and it's a satire sort of dealing with Black publishing, so Black authors and publishing. So I'm thinking a lot of people who were interested in the book Yellowface that came out recently by R.F. Kuang might be interested in this movie. I haven't read that book yet, but it looks like it might cover some of the same things about like race and publishing. This one specifically is following this Black author, and he writes kind of just general fiction, I think some mythology. He doesn't write about Black stories, stereotypical Black stories, and he kind of gets upset that it only seems to be the books about like Black misery and stereotypical Black stories that seem to get published and seem to get much buzz. So, you know, things about racism, slavery, police violence, things like that. He just gets upset that like his books aren't getting published because he doesn't write about those things. So as a joke, he writes this book that is very much about like a stereotypical character in like a gang or like from the ghetto, something like that, and it gets published and he is mad because he literally just wrote that as a joke and he thinks it's trash, and it just goes off from there. A lot of commentary on that kind of thing and about this man's life. Now, as for the book, I did just finish Twice Shy just as I was getting home from work today. Unfortunately, none of the books I read in this vlog are going to be a 5-star like I predicted. However, I am still going to give this book a 4-star because I did thoroughly enjoy it. It's super cute, light, and fluffy. I just wouldn't give it that 5-star feeling because I didn't get those really intense feelings while reading it. Also, the main guy character, as we got to know him, he wasn't quite my favorite. I'm sorry, Wesley. He was not my favorite love interest I've ever read from. He didn't quite check all those boxes for me. Yeah, unfortunately, I could not give it 5 stars. None of these books, you know, blew me out of the water and became favorites. However, I did like all of them. So I still would recommend all these books as romances, but unfortunately, it seems like I will still have to be searching for my perfect romance book. If you have any recommendations based on different opinions or critiques I've said in this video, let me know what romances you would recommend for me. What do you think could be a 5-star? But hopefully you enjoyed these movie and book recommendations in this video. Please subscribe for more videos from me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Bye!